Hello chess enthusiasts, my name is Miha and welcome to my chessrealm YouTube channel. So if you are following chess events, maybe you have come across German chess Bundesliga, which recently ended. Düsseldorfer Schachclub won, by the way, and will go to Europe Cup. But I found a very interesting game in the 14th round between Sergei Movsesian playing as white and Hrvoje Stević playing as black. Let's see what happened. Sergei Movsesian started with knight to f3, d5, b3, and we have Nimzo Larsen attack. Black plays bishop to f5, bishop to b2, e6, g3. Black is preparing double fianchetto. Black continues with h6, bishop goes to g2, knight to f6, white castles king side, bishop to e7, d3. Black also castles king side, and now knight from b goes to d2, c6, and rook to e1, and everything is prepared for this e4 pawn push strike in the center. And this is what happened. Black plays knight from b goes to d7, and now e4, attacking both pawn on d5 and bishop on f5. And black has decided to keep the tension in the center, so bishop goes back to h7. Well, yeah, white can capture pawn on d5, but if e-pawn captures on d5, c-pawn recaptures, rook would go to c8, taking over the semi-open c file, targeting this weak pawn on c2. So black has a slight edge here. So in the game, white plays queen to e2, queen to c7, a3, and now d-pawn captures on e4. D-pawn, of course, recaptures on e4, and black plays now e5, preventing this unpleasant e5 pawn push. Okay, so both sides are pretty much developed. This pawn on e4 is protected by knight and also by queen and rook, and it's also twice attacked. But in this position, white has decided to give up on this e4 pawn. Knight to c4 was played. So e4 pawn is now defenseless. Okay, it's protected by queen, but light pieces are going to capture it. Instead, white is attacking this pawn on e5 3 times, and it is only 2 times defended. There's no point in defending with, for example, bishop to d6, because rook to d1 simply drive this bishop away, and white is much better here. So black decided to capture this pawn on e4, and the correct way to do it would be with capturing with knight to e4. Because now even if white grabs the pawn back, for example with knight from f to e5, then black would probably continue with knight from d would go to f6. Knight on e4 is fully supported, and white would have to play very accurate here actually, because for example if white would want to drive this knight on e4 away with f3 for example, then bishop to c5 check would be a very strong move, and here knight would have to go to e3 defending the check, and this would be a very unpleasant pin. Because if for example in this position, if king let's say goes to f1, then simply knight captures on g3 check, h-pawn of course has to recapture, and knight to h5. Black is threatening with knight to g3 with checkmate, bishop to h3 creating a escape square, then knight to g3 and forking both king and the queen. And of course if white removes the queen, then simply knight to g3 is checkmate. In the game, black has decided to capture pawn on e4 with bishop captures on e4, knight from f captures pawn on e5, white is offering trade of bishop, so bishop captures on g2, king recaptures on g2, and now black plays rook from f goes to e8. Of course x-raying queen on the e file, but this is not actually a very serious threat, white doesn't have to worry. Rook from a to d1 was played. So this Knight on d7 is under attack, of course, if black makes a random move, let's say a6 simply, knight captures on d7, queen cannot recapture it because rook is still attacking this d7 square, and if knight, of course, recaptures on d7, then bishop would capture on g7, and if, of course, king recaptures bishop on g7, queen goes to g4, double attack on king and knight on d7, white gains the piece back, and with the king in the open, white is winning in this position. Now here in this position, the best option would be simply to capture this knight on e5. But black is not sensing any danger. Knight goes to d5 was played, blocking this d file, of course, but now white strikes with a spectacular knight sack. Knight captures pawn on f7. Well, this is a very complicated position, but still, maybe black could hold on to, with, for example, bishop to, let's say, f6. Now queen is under attack, knight also. Now one option is queen to h5, defending the knight, leading to a very complicated position. Maybe more straightforward option is knight from c to e5. Then probably knight would capture on e5, knight would recapture. Now knight on e5 is very well protected. White is a pawn up and would probably try to convert this advantage. Still, black would probably have a good drawing chances. But in the game, black is not sensing any danger, so king recaptures knight on f7. And you can imagine what happened. Queen goes to e6 check, king goes to f8 as there isn't any other square left, and now bishop goes to e5, attacking queen on c7. There aren't much square left for the queen, and of course if knight captures bishop on e5, then knight simply recaptures on e5. Checkmate here on f7 is the threat. Queen would have to be sacrificed here on e5, because if, for example, bishop to f6, then simply knight to g6 is checkmate. So in the game, queen goes to d8 was played, and now we have another stunning sacrifice. You can see this knight on d5 is protecting this f6 square. You will see later why this is important. So white plays rook captures knight on d5. C-pawn recaptures on d5 as there isn't any other options, and now knight goes to d6. So knight is protecting this f7 square, and queen to f7 is checkmate. There isn't actually much black can do here. If, for example, bishop captures knight on d6, then simply bishop recaptures on d6. It's check, king cannot go anywhere, and of course the only option is rook to e7, but after bishop to e7, both king and queen are forked. White is totally winning here. It's moreover it's made in maximum 10 moves, but I'll leave it for you to find it. So in the game, black plays knight captures bishop on e5, temporarily preventing this mate on f7. But white simply responds with rook captures knight on e5. And of course, mate on f7 is still the threat. There isn't much black can do here. If, for example, queen captures knight on d6, then rook goes to f5, it's check. King cannot go anywhere, and after the only move, bishop to f6, queen captures queen on d6. Queen versus rook and bishop is totally winning in this position. And if, for example, bishop captures knight on d6, then again rook goes to f5 check. King cannot go anywhere, so queen to f6 is the only move, but then rook captures on f6. G-pawn recaptures on f6, queen recaptures on f6 check, king to g8 is the only move. Then probably would follow I don't know, queen to g6 check, king can go to f8 or h8. Doesn't matter. White is going to capture this bishop on d6. It would be queen versus two rooks, but white would still have 3 pawns up. They're all very well connected, and this is a totally winning position for white. And therefore, in this position, Hrvoje Stević resigned the game. So I hope you like this game. I hope you have learned something from it. If you have any questions, my email is below in the description. Of course, I invite you to visit my Instagram page. That's it for now, and see you soon.